Rick and Morty comic bonus shorts for book 3. We start out with Beth and Summer. Beth spits out her wine when she sees a green alien suddenly appear, and he asks where Rick is. Summer says that he's not here, and him and Morty are off on some adventure. I wish we knew which one. And the alien says that Rick said he'd be here if they needed his help. Since when does Rick offer his help to anyone without a real chance of personal gain? I guess it was Morty's good influence on him for once. They're not mentioning a cash reward. I love him being portrayed as a hero here. Summer says that they can help them. I remember loving this story. Summer says confidently that it can't be that hard since Morty's an idiot and Rick's a drunk. And it was amusing that Beth was offended because she's also a drunk. And Summer said awkwardly, I mean, a drunk who is smart, like, you. Summer points out that they have nothing else to do, so they run into the confusingly red portal, with Summer being all confidently smirking like a badass, while Beth is more relatably worried. She also tries to talk like Rick and look cool. She's told that a huge star is about to collide with their mother planet. Wait, what? That wouldn't happen. Unless some bad guy was using a tractor beam to bring it to the planet with gravity. They need someone to pull the star away from its current path. Summer loses faith and panics, and Beth says that they have to think like Rick and do what he'd do. Summer says that he'd get drunk, and Beth is desperate and a drunk, so she tells the alien all seriously to get her some gin. The cheaper, the better. I laughed when I saw Beth acting drunk with her mouth all wide open and looking up at the ceiling. She says that she's pressing buttons and burps, making fun of Rick. She calls Rick selfish for abandoning his whole family, and it's still lighthearted because she's smiling and drunk and says whole the way she does, extending it. She gets his catchphrase wrong because she's drunk and presses the big red button as she spills her gin on the dashboard. And somehow that makes the star change course. Wait, the solution was inside the ship all along? Did Rick put that solution there? Wouldn't these guys know how to operate their own spaceship and save themselves? I guess Rick built the ship and sold it to them, and they're really new to using it. But this is believable. She managed to luck out, and it was a really big button. So it makes sense. It turns out the star is now heading for their spaceship. As if she turned on a tractor beam. But it'll still save the aliens' home planet. Summer pulls Beth into the portal without the aliens. And Beth's so surprised that she spills her gin all over the board and fries it so that the aliens can't go into the portal with them. It's a good thing Summer's worried about them. And it's amusing to see that Beth kind of takes after her father, and not too much because she's not outright evil. Well, that was an entertaining change of pace. And it actually made sense that Summer and Beth succeeded, they just got lucky. We should see stories like this more often, instead of it always being Rick and Morty. And it's a kind of Morty magic. We see Morty dealing with the fact that he's too shy to ask Jessica out, naturally because he doesn't look like the kind of guy who'd have a shot, especially since she already has a boyfriend. This is mundane. He also tries to write down a note asking her for a date to the Valentine's dance, and scribbles it out with a pen, even though he knows she already has a boyfriend. So he shouldn't be mad at himself for not asking her, because he was making the smart decision instead of wasting his time and humiliating himself. Morty complains about the fact that the men are expected to make the move, wishing women would take the initiative more often, and Summer seems to think that's sexist, to call women to action more. And she says he's blaming his lack of self-esteem on women, apparently. She acts like a tsundere by saying that she's not trying to help, while clearly trying to help by telling him to be sure of himself. As if that'll increase his chances. I always found it forced that Jessica was dating Bradley when he's established to be a jerk who belittles Morty in the show, while she's a nice person who wants to be a nurse at a hospice when she grows up. And she even complained about him being confrontational in the show. Rick says that acting confident really helped him with this, and Rick snarks that it would be faster to replace Morty with a more confident version of himself. And he's genre savvy by saying that there has to be a dimension for that. And he looks at a book called the Dimension Index, which tells him there's one specific dimension where the Mortys are confident. First of all, who made that book? It can't be him because he said there has to be a dimension for that. Although I guess he forgot and needed to remember what he wrote. It's an informal binder, see the rings? So it must be Rick. Otherwise it'd be sold in a novel form. It makes perfect sense that a guy who can travel to any dimension would write down what the differences are between dimensions, like he's a tourist cataloging his experiences. It's relatable of him. Imagine if Scourge did that. He'd be having a lot more fun with his life than just focusing on what he does. I'm confused that he talks as if one dimension has multiple Mortys in it. I thought we were always supposed to believe that each dimension has only one Earth as we know it. Or at least, each dimension has one Morty and Rick in it. Anyways, Rick plans to help Morty out. So that's good. He should have plans to try to help out his loved ones more often, especially if they're successful. It makes way more sense than him trying to have plans that involve making money, which you could get really easily by just warping to the right place, because there's loved ones. But it's still really confusing that Rick thinks this plan has any chance of success. Does he not know that Jessica's already dating someone? Shouldn't it be obvious to him that a more confident Morty... Well, she did agree to go on a date with Morty when she thought he was being more confident in the show, so never mind then. I don't know if she was still dating Bradley at that point. Maybe she secretly does like him and was just too shy to ask, or scared. Especially with Bradley and Rick Sanchez around. Maybe she just doesn't want to deal with Rick. We cut to the next day before Rick introduces Morty to what looks like an evil twin of his, which he shouldn't trust right away. Why on earth did it take until the next day? He made a portal yesterday. In the show, Rick warned Morty about the fact that a cocky Morty is nothing but trouble in the Evil Rick episode. But here, he actually looks proud of a cocky Morty, instead of intimidated by the villain waiting to happen. I guess he's only happy to be with him because it'll be useful for this specific plan. He says that somehow his whole dimension is full of self-assured assholes. That is completely impossible. There's gotta be a reason this world has a wide variety of personalities. And he's the same species as Morty, apparently. So maybe Rick's just wrong. He says that his world had like 27 world wars, and I smiled and giggled a little at how he was smiling while saying that it's literally the worst place imaginable. Okay, maybe he's not wrong. And I love that the writer cared enough to try to explain how his world was in a general way, as a result of people on that planet being even worse. That shows more care to the writing than Sonic. Unfortunately, the story is a pretty shitty ending. For no reason, confident Morty said creepy things to her when he had no reason to think that would end well. And since her expression made it immediately obvious that she wasn't happy about it, you'd think confident Morty would immediately know that he failed, instead of happily walking back to Rick. You'd think that he'd know better since you didn't agree to a date with him. So he wouldn't have a reason to be in a good mood. It would be a lot less confusing if we were simply told that this was an outright evil Morty. But instead we're supposed to believe he's just being confident. But if he was simply an evil twin, it makes sense that he was an idiot because he was trying to intentionally get Morty in trouble out of sadism. Which would make him look like a competent villain instead of a baffling idiot. So the story ends with Morty getting beaten up, and Rick going into the portal with confident Morty like a coward. It's confusing because not only is this his grandson, so I guess he thinks he couldn't get away with killing Bradley or freezing him, when he froze a bully in the show right away. But confident Morty clearly has the same expression as Rick seeing this. You'd think since Rick and Morty came into a room in the school through a portal in front of everyone in the show, it would be common knowledge that he travels through portals with Rick. And combine that with the fact that Jessica's dream proved that she knew that Morty travels the multiverse, and she even knows what Scary Terry looks like, and he has to be telling her about his adventures then. Or maybe she overhears him talking about it to other people, but he has no friends at school. So wouldn't you just realize that's not the real Morty because he goes to other universes all the time, and he's being nothing like Morty? And this isn't even the first time he's seen Morty acting different? I guess not. The story had potential, it was interesting at first, but they completely squandered it by the end by randomly giving the other Morty the idiot ball. When the first idea I had was that Rick would age up a clone of Morty and magically make him confident with his science powers. But that could have the same result, apparently. Rick had no reason not to just show Brad the other Morty. Also, if he could make Morty confident whenever he wants, Morty would ask for that. Now for Summer job. Summer's told she'll get a 45-minute break at 2 p.m. and she wants to savor every last minute of that freedom while it lasts. She's confident because she's been in loads of stressful situations and she only took this job because it seems easy. Then they see a huge amount of people having unlikable emotional reactions in a clothing store. There were so many people there and there was variety in what was going on, so it took a while for me to figure out how to describe it all generally. So 3 kids want some clothes and their parents telling them no, another kid spills something on the floor, and there's some angry woman holding a shirt in front of Summer trying to talk to her as her boss mocks her for thinking this would be easy. We can't see her expression though, which means it isn't as funny as it could have been. There's just some annoying kids that are technically harmless, and nearly all of them aren't trying to bother Summer. We get to 10 hours of retail later. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw that as the title of a news story at first because it was in all caps and had the same font as Summer job. Summer complains that she's glad that's all done because her back hurts, and then she complains because she has to pick up and fold all of the clothes on the floor. I thought clothing stores always had the clothes stay on the racks. I never saw any clothes on the floor in a store. Summer wishes there was more than just her, and of course she has an idea. But surprisingly, it's not an idea to make a clone of herself and age it up, which would be the obvious idea, and make more sense as something she could actually get away with, because the clones would look just like her to her boss. Except her store would have security cameras anyways that would catch whoever was helping her with her job. So either way, her boss would know it wasn't her doing all the work. Maybe she doesn't care about that and just wants things done faster. It makes more sense that she wants to use a Mr. Meeseeks instead, because Mr. Meeseeks are guaranteed to follow whatever order they're given. Well, she'd have to convince a clone of hers, and she probably wouldn't want to do it either and would try to run off on her own. And she would need Rick's help to make a clone of hers. So we cut to her assigning a huge amount of Mr. Meeseeks to tidying the store while her boss is gone. She's also smart by assigning specific Mr. Meeseeks to different tasks from each other so that they won't complete a task of someone else. Then Summer asks why one of the Mr. Meeseeks is still here, and he panics because he didn't fold one of the clothes. So he messes the place up again looking for that one shirt, and somehow he disappears even though he clearly undid everything he did. How does that work? She never told him to fold all of the clothes once, and only once, but I guess that was how it worked. Maybe the reason things just had to go wrong for Summer when I was rooting for her was that the writer got jealous of her. He thought she didn't deserve to have an edge over everyone else just because she had a Mr. Meeseeks box. It's like Phil the Future. The writers go out of their way to make the characters miserable, to punish them for having access to things that can make their lives easier than everyone else's. Well, that was a disappointing ending, but at least it made sense that things would go wrong for her since Mr. Meeseeks are way too obsessed with completing their task perfectly. And he didn't know that he had a sock magically stuck to his arm that he forgot to fold. Seriously, why was it stuck to him? Why was there a static cling? Just because he didn't know where the sock was, he arbitrarily lifted something up, somehow thinking the sock was under there, and he pushed something over with clothes on it for no reason. That was forced. Nothing was forcing him to do that. And what made him finally decide to look at the back of his arm? Wouldn't he have been feeling it on his arm the entire time? This never would have happened. He would have felt it and folded it way before this. Wouldn't it make more sense for a bad ending to be that Summer didn't get paid because the security cameras caught that she did nothing? He'd say that he wasn't paying the Mr. Meeseeks, he was paying her, and all she did was sit there. So him not paying her would be her punishment for relying on slaves to do all her work. Problem is, she's a sympathetic main character, so of course I feel bad for her. And I don't see how this was supposed to be funny, personally. In Superior Posterior, Jerry uses the portal gun to go to an alien planet to get some snacks, and finds out that there's a statue of another version of himself who saved an alien city from gunfire by getting in the way of it. Going to a planet he didn't know about by just pressing random buttons could have easily led to him getting killed, and he should have known that. Especially after the Doofus Jerry arc. I guess we just weren't told about which button he pressed to determine where the portal would show up on the dimension he chose. How did he recognize whose butt he ran into and ran into that statue anyways? And Rick shows up because it turns out he just made a device that has an alarm go off whenever someone steals his portal gun. What took him so long? Isn't he a genius? Out of nowhere, a tough guy asks Jerry if he's back for more, and some people have faith in him and start cheering for him to fight him. So, didn't the previous Jerry die? Why would he think he's the same guy? He's not asking how he regenerated? Rick does nothing, and Jerry cowers like the statue, and nobody's impressed. Oh good, Rick does do something finally. He spits alcohol at the bad guy and punches him to knock him down, and then uses a lighter to set him on fire. So everyone trashes the Jerry statue for good reason. This was a creative story. It had Jerry use a portal gun for once, and Rick was smart, and saved the day because of it. And Jerry gets what he deserves for being a coward. And it subverts your expectations right away because the only thing dangerous about the alien planet was that some random tough guy thug threatens him, rather than being dangerous because it's an incomprehensible alien planet. Too bad we'll never know the exact context behind why another Jerry died saving a city. Maybe he went there for the same reason Jerry went there. Also, you'd think that wouldn't be enough. Did he run out of bullets after he hit him and had to come back? I guess the other Jerry also came here without Rick. At that time, Rick wasn't there to save him by killing the bad guy. Oh, and after this, there's a ton of stories involving a character from the show with the worst name in all of history. I'm just gonna call him Mr. P. I like him because he's a nice guy, but his voice in the show is annoying, and so is his lack of an explanation for why Rick and his family knew him, and why he was living on Earth. Hopefully the Lil P Superstar stories will explain all the plot holes for them to make it worth it.